drinks trolley has come round just in time for our confession feature. What are we supping whilst we're enjoying this?
Well, the weather has turned a bit more cold and a bit more winter-like, so I've gone back to a red wine, and we have a lovely bottle in the pub. It's called Immortelle, and it's from France, and it's a really nice blend of Grenache, Syrah and Modeur vines, and they're very, very tasty. So that's what I've gone back to.
Very good. Thank you very much. Like tasting notes we got.
It was
there.
very much.
Maggie sends in tonight's tale. Maggie, thank you very much for this confession. Simon and team, let me take you back to 1994 when I was a new recruit on a 6-month temporary contract with a view to a permanent contract, if we did well, with a leading airline. We got to the time now that I was let loose and I was a big girl and I was loving my new job. On the day in question, I'd been on check-in at the airport. It was a quiet day. Only 2 of us were on the check-in. After the flight closed, we were told to close our desks and go for our break. Just as I was walking away, I heard this noise of shrieking and clip-clop behind me. I turned to face a voluptuous, brightly coloured and bejewelled lady waving her ticket. These are the days of paper tickets, you remember? Wow. She was from Lesotho, I think, and she was shouting, Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan. I'm not doing the Lesotho accent.
No, you're not, no.
Uzbekistan. She was just shouting it over and over. I said to her, oh, the Uzbekistan flight has just closed. She didn't know what I was saying, so she just kept saying Uzbekistan. So with her not speaking English and me not being able to speak her language, I thought, here's my opportunity to help out a distressed passenger and get her to the flight before she missed it completely. So seeing as she had her ticket, I took it from her, beckoned her to follow me, and we hurriedly dashed upstairs, and I took her through the staff airside entrance where we were allowed to take late passengers. Who knew? The immigration chap could see we're in a rush, and I explained that she was late for the flight and needed to get her to the gate. Had a look at the passport and waved us through. When we got to the gate of the flight, it was a bit chaotic and arguments over hand luggage going on and so on with the staff boarding the flight. So I nipped behind the desk, started to type in her name, and usually by typing the first 3 letters, it brings up the name, and hey presto, her name came up and I hit print boarding card and board flight. With this, I beckoned her down the gantry of the flight departure gate. All the while she's going, Uzbekistan! and waving her arms about. I nodded. I said, yes, Uzbekistan. I led her to the door of the plane where the air hostess took over and took her onto the plane. I was very pleased with myself. I'd done a good deed. Maybe I would get a permanent contract with the airline. Oh. So after a few days and arriving at work for another shift, we all made our way to sign in and go for our usual morning meeting. This particular morning was, however, a bit different, as the main manager was in with a wad of papers and looking rather serious. He said, we've had an incident. I sat there all ears thinking, gosh, I wonder what's happening. A bit of excitement. He continued, the flight to Uzbekistan 3 days ago, we had a situation whereby a passenger had been boarded onto the aircraft and was sent to Uzbekistan without a visa and without being checked in. My stomach dropped and my heart started to beat a bit faster than normal. The manager continued, this passenger had to be kept airside in Uzbekistan, and an interpreter was sent to talk to her to find out how and why she was in Uzbekistan without the right documents. He continued to say that after investigating further, the passenger had said through the interpreter she had just arrived in London from Uzbekistan. She'd gone through arrivals without picking up her baggage. Realizing she'd missed the baggage claim, she'd then run out looking for help. This is where I entered the story, and I put her straight back on a flight to Uzbekistan. The main problem was that as she did not have a visa and was not allowed to land in the country, the next flight back from Uzbekistan to London was in 2 days' time. And for 2 days she had to sleep in the airport on seats airside. The airline was also to receive a fine for carrying a passenger without the correct documents, and they had to pay for her return to London. The manager continued to say that the team carrying out the departure of the flight had been spoken to, and that although they could not recall the passenger, they had accepted they'd made an error and would be careful not to repeat the same mistake. I just wanted the ground to open and swallow me up, but I stood up, hurriedly walked out, didn't turn up then.
No.
Went to my allocated check-in desk and buried my head behind the screen and was thankful for the long queue of skiing passengers waiting to check in for Switzerland on Swissair. really I want to say is sorry to the poor lady who I rushed through the airport, but her back on the plane to the place she'd just come from, even though I thought I was helping her. Sorry to the gate team staff that were boarding the flight that day, and they took the blame. To this day, no one has a clue what happened. I wasn't noticed due to the problems with the passengers and their hand baggage. Anyway, and sorry to the airline because you had a fine and having to compensate and pay the passenger to get back in the first place. Well, I hope I am forgiven. Oh, and then as a PS at the end, I did get kept on at the airline. Thankfully, lots of measures have been put in place to make sure this kind of thing never happens again. Anyway, so it's one thing to miss the Isle of Man ferry, but it's another thing to be flying from Uzbekistan! And then be sent straight back again. Sister Susie.
Oh, Maggie, oh dear, I think is the only thing I can think of to say. You were trying to help, and you were doing your very, very best, and your intentions were there. They were good. And there was no malice, and I just want to forgive you because your stomach must have felt awful when you worked out that you'd put the passenger back from where she'd come from, and to stay in the airport for 2 days. I'm going to forgive you because it's just terrific.
Yes, it is, because she is trying to do her very best. It just happened to be that
the wrong thing.
The woman from Lesotho ended up paying the price here. Yes. Brother from
might I suggest that the woman from Lesotho shouldn't have been shouting Uzbekistan if she wanted if all she wanted was her luggage. Don't shout Uzbekistan, waving a ticket, because people might think you want to go to Uzbekistan.
Had arrived.
But she wants her luggage from Uzbekistan.
She wants the luggage from Uzbekistan. When she's getting on the plane, does she not think, do you know what? Actually, I want my bags. I don't want to be getting on another plane. Why is she putting me on another plane? It's nothing to do with you, Maggie. Nothing to be forgiven for. She's got a tongue in her head. Should have used it. And for that reason, I'm sure actually the airports in Uzbekistan are all very nice as well. Everyone comes out of this fine. Nothing to be forgiven for. Definitely forgiven.
Okay, people's very...